Human design is a part science, part spiritual system that tells you who you came here to be. You have your own blueprint, your own way of becoming successful, your own way your dreams are going to come true, the way you'll experience the most joy and fulfillment. The instruction manual for how to move through the world is custom to you. When you act according to that manual, when you act as the real you, everything in life comes to you with more ease and less resistance. We all know we're different, yet we're still acting like there's one way to do life. Let's talk about it. To find out your design and the designs of the people in your life, you can visit myhumandesign.com or download the My Human Design app in the App Store and on Google Play. Welcome back, everybody. I know we are all having a bit of a doozy of a time at the moment, so this is just another little bit of an energy check-in, because Lord knows we all need that reminder of really the rules of this game, what this life is all about. And, sometimes I think one of the biggest struggles of being a human is having to have a foot in between two worlds, having to realize that none of this matters, but that we temporarily have to treat it like it all matters. And that means the details and the minutiae of our life is our work and is the part of being divine on this planet. So it's just weird being a human. And I want to start off by acknowledging that and letting you just take a minute to acknowledge, like, there is no manual for this. And it is something that is incredibly challenging that we signed up for, and that it's okay if you feel like you don't know where this is going. No one knows where this is going, and no one can tell you where this is going, except for if we tap back into the truths of life and the mechanics of how this whole thing works. So something as basic as, challenges come to you. They are custom made for you, the ones that come to you, and they are specifically tailored to enable, to catalyze your exact next level of growth and consciousness that you have to go through. Knowing that that's not a personal thing, but that is just the rule that every human is subject to, that helps, because that means you're not doing it wrong. It's not anything about you that kind of got missed out in the production line. And if you think about all the billions and billions of different things that could come into your life experience today, there is a sort of sorting hat at play, like the one in Harry Potter, that decides which life situations get magnetized to you. Like, if you think about the amount of energy and design and logistics and allocation that the universe is doing behind the scenes to make that happen, is really important. So one of the biggest things that we can really do in our journey here is to get rid of victim mentality, because when this kind of shit hits the fan, it's so easy. Our first instinct is always, why is it happening to me? Poor me. Oh my gosh. And we need to give ourselves time to lick our wounds and indulge a little bit in feeling sorry for ourselves, but we also have to kind of bring it back and say, listen, I wouldn't not be sent anything that I can't already handle, because the solution energetically is always created before the problem. So the problem doesn't exist unless a solution for it exists. And the universe is sending you the problem so that you can actually go and find the solution, so that you and the solution can find each other on this path called life. So with that in mind, we talk about getting rid of victim consciousness. It's really important, and I believe now more than ever, to be spiritual adults. I think what I'm seeing in the sort of personal development world at the moment is that we almost want to kid ourselves that there is such a thing as a free pass. Meaning, you have one camp who's like, just take the action, just do the things, and you'll be great. And then you have another camp that's like, you just need to manifest and believe in it enough. And the other camp that's like, it's just about believing you're worthy. The secret is to believe you're worthy. And then someone else is like, you just need to biohack. And the thing about all of these tools is that all of them are true. Where we mostly go wrong is in investing too much in any one of them, believing that it allows us and affords us to not have to think about all the other vectors. The truth is, we have to take the action, and we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to heal, and we have to rewire, and we have to be confident, and we have to be okay with having doubts. We have to do all of it. And no one in this life is getting a free pass. So you can either kid yourself that you're getting a free pass, or you can face the fact that you don't get a free pass. But either way, you're not operating with a free pass. The universe is not giving you a free pass because it cares enough about you to not want to give you one. Because guess what? If you go through life with the illusion that you have a free pass, we haven't done our work, and thus we haven't unlocked a life that makes us remember in such a truly deep way, down to the cellular level, that we have God in us, that we have the creator, the divine in us. We don't feel in touch of that creative power. And I would say that most of us, most of the time, even if we've done a lot of work, you're doing well if you feel like that 10% of the time compared to the world right now. You're doing extremely well if you feel that naturally 20% of the time. And so really the addiction that we have to get off is being a bit too there with us. And we can kind of look at the generation that raised us a little bit to give us clues about the fact that this is our work. The work that our generation is facing is to rebalance that sort of enabling with the discipline, with the giving ourselves the straight one, with calling ourselves out. And the secret, and you've probably heard me say this before, but the secret is to be able to call yourself out without shaming yourself out. Because, of course, if we attach shame to every flaw, then we are going to prefer living in a world where I'm worthy, I'm amazing, everyone else is mean to me, and I'm the victim. But that is not the road to self-proclamation of divinity and ultimate creative power and creativity and force and joy and freedom in this world. So we have to be able to, just as much as we want to care for the inner child, again, no free pass. So just as much as, yes, you have to put the energy into taking care of your inner child, you also have to put energy into being a good inner parent to yourself. And so as much as our sometimes petulant ego will say, I can't catch a freaking break, are you telling me there's more to do? It's the kind thing to face that there is more to do. And there is a kindness in understanding that you wouldn't have this workload if you couldn't handle it. And actually, when you try to handle it, it's only then that you realize you can handle it. And the more you handle, the more you can handle. And the more you do, the more you realize you can do. And everything in your life becomes smaller because your vessel has grown. So I remember when I left high school, I didn't go to further education, college, whatever. And neither did my best friend. And I remember kind of being stuck in a rut, not really knowing what to do, feeling so far from my purpose. And me trying to ask myself the question of what I wanted to do just seemed to make it worse, because it just highlighted the fact that I was nowhere close to the momentum that I knew I wanted in my life. And I remember my best friend, who has the Genius Freak channel in human design. And I remember her saying to me one day, if all you have to do in the day is go to the post office, it feels like impossible. And yet, if we were doing our dream jobs, the post office would just be an afterthought on the way home from work. And that really has stuck with me, 17, 18 years later, whereby life gives you more when you become more, and that more then seems less to you because you are just always so much bigger than what the things you are doing are. One of the places we get stuck is to really believe that anything we take on is bigger than us, and we get so afraid of being swallowed by it, being overwhelmed by it, that we can't handle it. The helplessness, the hopelessness, all of that. And again, that's all taking it personally, because there's nothing about you that means you're capable or incapable. Everybody is equal parts capable and infallible and fallible. And that's just the nature of being human. So it's like that line in the Course of Miracles, everyone is special and no one is special. And that really helps any ego, any self-doubt, any questioning yourself. If you keep coming back to that, that's really going to give you some respite in these tough times, but it's also going to give you the courage to step up to the plate and sign up for the full package. But in order to sign up for the full package, you cannot kid yourself with the free pass. And so it's really important when you hear people give you like a one-stop shop solution, like Just eat meat will give you, get rid of all your autoimmune conditions. Maybe, but also there's an emotional component and there's a mental component and there's many other components. And maybe just one of them needs to be tweaked in this specific situation for you, but not at the expense of you kidding yourself that there aren't many, many factors that go into everything. And every situation needs to be addressed from that whole human point of view. And so I think about parents a lot of the time. I said, we can look to our parents for clues on this. If your parents ruled with a lot of strictness and a lot of shame, you need to learn to be softer on yourself. But if you also had parents who almost wanted to be your best friend and therefore were ever afraid to give you the gift of telling you did something wrong, or always wanted to be liked by you, so they never disciplined you, they never gave you tools that made you feel capable, that could be the root of why you don't trust yourself to be capable. Usually, it's a spectrum, so you would fall on different sides of the camp, but that gives you clues as to which medicine you need in any point in your life. Usually, we obviously always need both, but there'll be one that is easier for you to lean into. So for me, for example, because I was raised in a very autocratic, very strict household, the discipline comes very easy to me. I was doing ice baths and never allowed to sleep in, on vacation when I was 7 years old. I was swimming. I never had a dummy. I never had a pushchair. So, being rigorous with myself is something that came very easy. Learning to be compassionate for my downfalls without shame took a little bit of a harder road. So try and think about which one was given to you more, because the other one is the one that you will have to learn to give yourself more, perhaps. And similarly, if you're listening to this as a parent, really, really understand that kindness is truth and care. Kindness is calling your kids out or being there, the voice of their own common sense when they don't have one, without attaching shame to it. And I think in our culture, in the collective, we cannot see fault without seeing shame. We cannot fault another person without being okay with them. When someone makes us feel insecure about ourselves, the first thing we want to do is point out something that they don't have. And we almost want to sometimes convince our friends to see that about them, because it kind of takes someone down a notch. We're not used to seeing the flaws in someone and loving them anyway. And so we probably aren't good at or used to doing that with ourselves if we've become so used to doing that with other people when they threaten us. So we have to be able to see our goodness and not let the fact that we can hold our goodness and hold our flaws in the same human being, with the absence of any shame, in the coexistence of those two things, with the absence of any question of worthiness or lack thereof. To accept the soup, have it nothing to do with how worthy or unworthy you are. One of my first sort of downloads that ever came to me is that, questioning your worth is above your spiritual pay grade. It is not our job. The universe does not waste energy. So it's not going to go to all the trouble of incarnating you here if it doesn't already implant a part of itself, a part of God consciousness, the crystal of consciousness, the original crystal of consciousness, whatever you want to call it. If you are not a shard of that crystal of consciousness, simply by the laws of physics, it's that there is no waste of energy in the universe. And so whenever you're questioning your worth, come back to that. I am worth having a wonderful experience here because that's the whole point that I was brought here. And in order to get there, I have to go through the very human journey of realizing that I am responsible for creating it, for co-creating it, but still creating my side. And it is about addressing all the various factors of life. I'm not getting a free pass. I don't get to just do this quickly for 10 months and then sit back and chill for the rest of my life, and nor would I want that. I don't just have to, fix my sleep and then everything's going to be okay. I don't just have to make money and then I'm going to be healed. I don't just have to find my soulmate and then I'll finally love myself. I don't have to be on a magazine cover and then think that that's going to make sure that I never have a body image issue again. Somebody close to me told me that that was genuine what they thought would happen, and then they reached that goal and it wasn't there. And so I think if we start on the journey and realize that it's not a free pass and there's no such thing as a free pass, that actually enables us to show up as more sovereign human beings, and it actually gives the power back to ourselves, because the more responsibility you take, the more power you get given. So therefore, when you say, oh, there is no free pass, I'm going to start acting like there's no free pass, my God, watch the magnetism that creates, because the universe, when it sees someone fully stepping up to the plate, that's a person it wants to get behind, because you sure as hell better bet it's going to use you to have that energy that you're funneling in to be infectious to every other freaking human being that is around you that needs that too. Because we are living in a time where entrainment is more important than ever before, i.e., before you even open your mouth, your energy is going to bleed into everyone around you, because everyone is becoming an energy reader. And thus, they will get so much of you just being you without you even having been aware necessarily that they clocked anything. So that's why it's so important that you owe to yourself, which road are you going to take? Either way, there's no free pass. Do you want to act as if there is no free pass, or do we want to kid ourselves and pretend like there is, just so that we can feel temporarily a false sense of safety and control? Or do we want to realize that actually the ultimate safety and control is giving up all the earthly human illusions of safety and control, so that we surrender into, or let the universe's safety and control catch us and move through us? And that's really what this whole spiritual journey is about. People ask me about surrender all the time. And surrender is not about doing nothing. Surrender is about actually fully holding yourself accountable to make yourself proud every day in your integrity and in your actions, and to hold yourself to a higher standard, knowing that the second you decide that you can handle more, that you can do better, you can do even better than you thought you could, that you can be even more of an adult than you thought you could, wow, all of a sudden, that was the simplest thing in the world. It is genuinely that opening that door and realizing it was never locked in the first place. You literally just had to open it. So this is what I really, really want to highlight for us now, because I see the fear and the ego will find any place that it can bury itself into in a clever enough way to hide. And I see it creeping into the spiritual wellness, personal development, business, entrepreneurship, all of that stuff areas so smartly, in the sense of you just need this and you'll be fine. And we want to not suck on any dummies. Is that how you call them in the US? The dummy?
A gummy?
No, a dummy. You know, the thing that babies,
Oh, a sucker.
a sucker. Exactly. Just don't be a
or
sucker.
or a pacifier, I think
Yes.
might be what you're saying. I actually wanted to ask you this question in general, and this topic is perfectly lined up for this question, because that I've been in probably the most difficult 2 weeks of my entire life, where I've experienced loss and then stacks and stacks and stacks of like other things that could have, in one individual experience of that thing, broke me or caused me to go into that victim consciousness. And I think I said to you, I feel the most capable I've ever felt in my life. And I think it is because I haven't fallen into that. Why is this happening to me? Poor me. I'm like very aware of that. Like you said, we don't have a free pass. Everyone in life is going to experience this level of heaviness, of grief, of other things happening around grief, of having to keep moving through life and have hard things happen to us. But my question is, when I'm in that, and it's not the victim thing happening, but I'm conscious that there's something that this is supposed to be, processing for me or bringing up for me. What if I can't find that thing? What do I have to be able to intellectualize what
Mm.
this experience is supposed to be doing for my soul, or is it the experience itself that is doing something for me?
It's such a good question because I think that there are two layers to it. I think on one level, knowing gives us a sense of safety and soothing. And so it is just the very, um, forever with us human question of what's this all for? Where's this all headed? What does it mean? And, like I was saying, none of this matters and all of it matters. And to add to that, the meaning of life is what you ascribe to it. I think on the one hand, it's okay if meaning if we it behooves us to allow the true full meaning and significance of things to come in retrospect, and you can become more secure in knowing that that will come and allowing there to be a time lag. If, for example, how you showed up capably and you showed up in a way that made you realize how strong you were, and you allowed all the space for the human experience to come in, and you didn't, numb away from that or gloss over it, spiritual bypass over it, any of that stuff either. So you sort of had that balance. So on the one hand, we want to become better at making sense of things later. However, to the degree that you are aware of yourself, your own inner fabric, your essence, the fabric of your essence, the more you have some semblance in real time of not why the situation is happening to you, but what it's pressing on in you specifically, what it is causing to come to the surface that is usually in the background, the parts of you that it's the good parts of you that it's maybe trying to pull out, right? So, just to use a basic example in your situation, it was maybe trying to show you how capable you were. And that's obviously a very small fraction of what went on. I don't mean to diminish that. I'm just, for our listeners, everyone in our cluster here, sometimes a challenging situation is here to remind you of your strength and your power. And then it's you meeting that moment to decide, I'm going to meet this with the most amount of strength and power I can muster, right? It's always about what you can do in that moment and reaching that moment and striving to reach that moment. Or, in contrast, sometimes we can reach for a false sense of clarity because we just want to be able to explain it away. And then we haven't allowed the time and the breathing space to really sit with that thing and let the chemistry of that moment alchemize something in us. And then we're blocked because we already told a narrative, and then we can't see the truth of what the lesson or the meaning or the why behind it all was. So it really depends on the situation, and I don't think we all get it right at all times, but it's about being able to read your own energy. So were you clinging to the meaning? Did having the meaning make you feel extra safe? Would you be okay if another meaning, another layer dropped in later? Are you, proactively trying to tell 25 people and convince them that that was the truth so that you can finally believe that was the truth? Or are you sitting in silence? But on the other hand, if you're someone who keeps too much to yourself, then sitting in the silence and not trying to discuss it or find the meaning with someone, that could be your medicine too. So, the situation that happened to you affected a lot of other people. It affected them in the movie and the story of their life completely differently. And so it really isn't about trying to universalize things. It's really, really about, and this is where I just think I just don't want to ever fall into spitting one and done answers for people, because we are more intelligent than that. We deserve truth. We deserve to learn the messier, longer, more challenging pattern of not believing that there is a X always means Y in life, and more of a you have to know yourself, you have to read your own energy, and you have to know what situations are, and you have to adjust along the way, and you have to stay open-minded, and you have to be open to feedback, and you also have to know when to shut the feedback out depending on how well you know yourself. We have to do all of it. And I think we are ready to hear this now, and that's why it's so important to know that there isn't a one and done answer for those kinds of questions.
And I think that you believe this, but correct me if I'm wrong. So as you move through it, even if you can't, like you said, you might get the clarity in retrospect. So even if you're in these like very intense hard moments, it's okay that you can't pinpoint it right away, because the mechanics of life are set up to transform you and bring you the answers,
Mhm.
correct? Like I don't have to force myself to understand, because grief, I feel like that aspect of it, I was able to show up as capable, and I get that that was what that was. But then all the other added layers on top of completely unrelated things that happen in the span of a 2 week point, those are the things where I'm like, were these supposed to break me? But
Mm.
you're saying it's okay for me to just be in it, and then let that transformation occur over whatever time period it takes for that clarity to come.
Absolutely. And you know, it's so funny. It's a say it reminds me of when people ask about how do I get over someone? And I think we think of these things as a binary thing, but actually they come in drip layers. So you can have some idea about what the meaning of some of these things were, and there will be more layers of meaning that will get revealed to you more and more. The same as getting over someone. You get over someone to one degree very well in the first month, and then you get over a different aspect of it in 6 months, and then you get a different aspect of it in 10 years, right? And the time it takes is just the time it takes. The only thing we don't want to do is slow it down by holding on, slow it down by resisting, slow it down by letting our ego stay in the way. And that's why it really is just about constantly knowing yourself, because the more you know your ego, the more you know where you tend to fall down, where your comfort zones and your shiny carrots tend to kind of gnaw away at the sides of you to stop you from moving forward. And they try to get you to go left and right instead of just allow you to just not even march forward, but allow yourself to just jump in the stream that's going to carry you and then just swim in the stream. That's where the self knowledge really comes in. So it's beautiful that we try to find meaning because of that, because the meaning of life is what we ascribe to it. And also, once you find some semblance of meaning, there will be maybe another layer, and will be another layer. And that's kind of how it's meant to work, is that it's not like the first meaning is the only meaning. It's just that you have obviously got a ton of clarity right now, and there's more coming for you as well.
I like that you bring up the being your real self aspect, because definitely in these times, I think understanding how you function is so helpful. One, for how you show up, but also for how you process on the other side of it.
Hmm.
Because, for example, I'm a 3-5 profile. I'm going to learn by experiencing things. I'm going to learn by going through it myself. But I caught myself, people are talking about the full moon in Capricorn, and they're describing like what you're supposed to be getting from it. And that's what's been happening over this past weekend. And I was like, wait, I don't understand it enough. Maybe I need to understand more information in order to understand what I'm supposed to be getting from this experience. Like I caught myself going into almost not a not self, but like thinking that I had to do this a different way than what is natural to me in order to actually figure it out. I know I can hear that you know exactly what I'm talking about, but can you explain the tie between your design and the way you go through things like this?
I think that's such an amazing question. And I think what people don't realize maybe about me is that I'm very skeptical. I don't talk about this enough. I'm extremely cynical. I'm the last person you would ever have thought, if you'd met me 15 years ago, that I would be in a field like this. But human design is so literal. It seems woo because it does have a mystical, incredibly mystical element to it. But it is so literal in that it is the manual on how you meet life. And where we go wrong is we read other people's manuals. So if you're trying to assemble a couch and you're reading the manual for the table, there's going to be some kind of situation because you're going to be confused. You're going to be like, hold on, I don't even see these parts. Maybe I'm reading the manual wrong. What am I doing? It looks like I have the wrong pieces. And yeah, you have the wrong pieces because you're a couch trying to be a table. So, what was that expression? If you teach a fish to climb a tree, it's going to spend the whole
Think it
life, its life,
thinking it's a
what?
bad fish or something.
Yeah, it's going to spend its whole life believing it's an idiot or something like that.
Yes, something like that.
So the thing about showing up as your real self is also in the same way that life is going to send you the exact situation that is perfectly curated towards your next level of self. Your next level of self is thus the thing that is required for you and how you shop in that situation. So it really is as literal as, fives are the ones who have that save the day energy. And, me knowing the intricacies of your story, there were many times, and only when you were invited, and only when it was correct for you, and only when you knew there were days that you were capable of saving, you actually stepped in. And my God, did that actually make the timeline of unfolding of things so much more magical. And I really mean that word magical in a very, very literal way than it could have been. Did it line things up that never would have happened, that would have ended up being much more hurtful, much more catastrophic, much more all these things, right? And if you had not embraced that part of yourself and realized that you were the person in that situation who was assigned to play that role, and you listened to the call to play that role, that's all it is. In every moment of life, you're trying to find your purpose, you're trying to improve your relationship, you're trying to raise your kids. Is like, what is the role that I can add to the situation? Not to the person so they think well of me, not to my ego so my ego thinks it has some sameness of who I was yesterday because I'm so and so and I say things this way. But genuinely, when I look at my design and I'm looking at it as if I had no preconceived notions of who I already was, and it says to me something as literal as, you uh you know manifest the best situations as a four profile by nurturing your connections. And trust me, I've had plenty of people with fives in their profile telling me I put way too much energy into people, I enable people way too much, and of course that is the downside to that, so I manage that too. But my goodness, have things unfolded for me in unbelievable ways because I went deep with people, because I invest in connection. I invest in connection in a ridiculous way to someone who has a five or a six in their profile, right? But that's not ridiculous for me. And so if I'm not questioning that, and I'm not because I know that this is going to work, but because I decide I would rather take the risk of seeing if being my real self actually turns out better than the manual that is given, the homogenized, same status quo manual that is handed out to all of us. For us who tear out that manual, we can turn to human design, get our own manual, but no one from the government, from our parents, from anyone who's ever lived before has evidence that this works, and we are the case one of one. And that's scary as hell. But when you do it, and you tell me, and you've been telling me the last 2 weeks, every single time you do it is when you build the evidence back to yourself from your past self or current self to your future self. I've done this enough times, and that gives me the trust of knowing it's going to maybe work again. And that's why I always say to people, the first step is the hardest step, because that's when you're going from having zero evidence to having one piece. That's a infinite percentage multiplication from 0 to 1. Once you go from 1 to 2, that infinite percentage goes down to 50% because you're just doubling. 2 to 3 is going down even less because then you're just thirding, right? It's 33% more evidence. And then it just gets infinitesimally. And this is why I was saying about the current, it does just carry you more and more, because you're like, oh, even though we all default into doubt, we all default into no one's going to catch me, we all default into where the hell is this going, especially the last 2 weeks. Everybody has been challenged to the limit. Everybody has had stuff that they have previously minimized been shown, and it's all been around family, old family patterns, emotions, things we don't address, things we think we can get a free pass out of, things will never affect us, feeling levels of deep emotions we've never had before, things we've been tethered to, whether they're situations, people, places, things, setups that we kind of thought we can afford to just keep going in the background. And maybe now we kind of see that, wow, we really, really can't because they're costing us, or the universe straight up remove them. So we've all been going through this, and we have to believe again, because there is a ultimate law of cause and effect in this world, there would not be the tablecloth being yanked out under the table scape if everything wasn't then able to go up into the air, and then we get to decide which pieces we actually want to put back on our table. And that's the scary part, is like the getting rid, the freedom, the temporary lack of something, which is what creates an empty space. And being a grown up and realizing that the ultimate freedom is not giving yourself these false free passes, that is the magic.